This is the second lecture in this series, and in today's lecture, we are going to discuss the second part of Is India Civilized? An essay written by Sri Aurobindo. In the first lecture, we discussed the first part of Is India Civilized? And in that lecture, we discussed the key characteristics of Indian and European cultures, the Indian spiritualism and European materialism, the key differences between these two cultures, and how these two cultures are trying to intersect, trying to interfere, trying to overcome the effects of other cultures, and the Darwinism that is going on between these two different cultures, these two entirely different cultures, and the harmony in the concept of harmony in Indian culture, harmony among the mind, body, and soul. So, in the second lecture, we will discuss what is the need of the preservance of a culture. Why do we need to preserve the Indian culture, and what is the way of preserving it? Do we need to defend it actively? Do we need to defend it actively, or it will be defended automatically? So, what are the ways to defend it, and does does a kind of cultural chauvinism is does do we need the cultural chauvinism to protect the Indian culture from the uh, cultural forces or from the European cultural forces or the cultures of other European countries or non-Asian countries? So we started from the first page. Does the future of humanity lie in a culture founded solely upon reason and science? So, in the last lecture, we discussed that the European culture is founded solely on the forces of materialism, and forces of science and reason. Science and reason. So, Aurobindo asks a question: do we need a culture, or does the future of humanity lie in such a culture which has been founded upon the forces of science and reason? Are these two elements sufficient for the survival of humanity in this world? Science and reason, are these two elements sufficient for the survival of humanity on this world? And does civilization, it is from here, and does civilization consist in man's endeavor to find that light and support in a rationalized knowledge and rationalized way of life? So, does the support that is required for the survival of humanity, does that support, does the human find that support in the forces of science and reason? Do we find that support in a rationalized knowledge and rationalized way of life? Means, do we find these forces of survival in the material world? An ordered knowledge of the powers, forces, possibilities of physical nature and of the psychology of man as a mental and physical being is then the only true science? Do we find the survival forces do we find all the survival forces in the field of sciences in an organized way, in the organized knowledge, in the organized powers and forces in physical nature? Do we need only science and reason for our survival? All our philosophy, religion, all our science, thought, art, social structure, law, and institution must find itself upon the this idea of existence must serve this one aim and endeavor. Do we need to serve, or do we need only the organized knowledge, only the science and reason for our survival? Is this the ultimate motive? This is the formula which European civilization has accepted. Sri Aurobindo is trying to say that European cultures have adopted, have completely given to the materialism, and it is only science and reason that is providing them the forces of that is providing them with the forces of survival. It is the formula of an intelligently mechanized civilization. It is the formula of an intelligently mechanized civilization, a civilization that has been put to mechanism, that has been put to a certain kind of mechanism. As you all know, life cannot be lived at extremes, and it cannot be, it should not be made mechanized. But the European materialism has put it to a kind of mechanism. Are not religion, philosophy, science, thought, art, society, all life, even means only of this growth, instruments of the spirit to be used for its service and its spiritual aim as their dominant and at least their ultimate preoccupation? So, are not religion, philosophy, so are not these fields the instruments of the spirits? Shouldn't should these elements or all the instruments be used for the service of the spirits of humanity? Shouldn't this be used? So, what should be the proper way? The proper way is that all the elements, all the instruments, that is religion, philosophy, science, thought, art, society, all these should serve the humanities. All these elements should be there for the service of the spirit, for the service of the spirit. Whether the future hope of race lies in a rational and intelligently mechanized or in a spiritual, intuitive, and religious civilization culture, that is then the important issue. So, what is the question? The question is: do we need only science and religion for the science and reason for the survival of humanity, or we need spirits and religious civilization and culture for the survival of humanity? When the rationalistic critic denies that India is or ever has been civilized, when he declares the Upanishad, Vedanta, Buddhism, Hinduism, ancient Indian art and poetry a mass of barbarism, the vein of production of a persistently barbaric mind, what he means is simply that civilization is synonymous and identical with the cult and practice of the materialistic reason. So, when a European critic criticizes Indian culture as being barbaric, criticizes Indian religion, Indian philosophy, Indian literature as barbaric, what he simply means is that the materialism is the only force, or materialism is the only thing that is required for the survival of humanity. That is required for the survival of humanity. Means it means he puts forth only the materialistic point of view of human life. Materialistic point of view of the human life. All that is obsessed with the idea of eternal, and a society which is too much governed by the ideas born of these things and not solely by intellectual clarity and the pursuit of material development and efficiency, are not the products of civilization but the offsprings of a crudely subtle barbarism. What that critic criticizes is the crudely subtle barbarism. What does he mean by the crudely subtle barbarism? Means when when one is too much involved in spiritualism, the person does not pay any heed towards the materialistic gain or the material value of the things. So the critic with a materialistic point of view tries to criticize that person and say that 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 he is that the Indian person that is paying heed only to spiritualism is pursuing simply barbarism. But this thesis obviously proves too much. Most of the great parts of humanity would fall under this condemnation. Means most of the civilization and cultures of the world have grown from the spiritual base. They had a spiritual base, and it is the day to day development that has drifted these cultures away from the spiritualism towards the way of materialism. A more moderate A more moderate and perspicuous rationalistic critic would admit the past value of India's achievements. He would not condemn Buddhism and Vedanta and all Indian art and philosophy and social ideas as barbarous, but he would still contend that not there lies any future good for human race. A more moderate there, there may be two, three kinds of critics of Indian culture. One would simply render it as barbaric culture. एक तो दो तीन तरह के क्रिटिक हो सकते हैं. कोई तो डायरेक्टली यूं कह सकता है कि इंडियन कल्चर जो है वो बारबरिक है, यहाँ कुछ नहीं है, बकवास है. दूसरा क्रिटिक जो है वो थोड़ा सा रैशनलिस्टिक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से एक्सप्रेस कर सकता है. ही में सिंपली से दैट they he may simply admit the past value of Indian achievements. He may simply admit the value of the Indian culture that had been attached to it in the past. But he would not accept the present value of Indian culture. He would simply put forth the materialistic point of view. Materialistic point of view. Modern adventures of humanity, its efforts well founded not upon speculation and imagination but on a certain and tangible scientific truth, its laboriously increased reaches of sure and firmly tested scientific organization. So the modern cultures are based on the speculation and imagination. They are not based on the speculation and imagination but on tangible scientific truth. Means the scientifically proven ideas. The only thing that that is of some value in modern materialistic world is the scientifically proven knowledge, and that is the only thing that is valued in the modern European materialistic culture. The secret of our ultimate perfection, the secret of our ultimate perfection is to be discovered deeper within us, and things and nature. It is to be sought centrally in spiritual self knowledge and self perfection, and in the founding of life on that self knowledge. So, how could one find the ultimate perfection? Is it possible to find that ultimate perfection with the materialistic forces? Absolutely not. So, the only way of finding the absolute perfection in the way of humanities is the way of finding it with the deeper knowledge that lies within us, that lies within the things, and that lies within the nature. But all the summits of thought, all the summits of thought and steadily penetrating more and more downwards through art and poetry and musical and general literature, and immense change in its progress. Means every field is facing a phase of change. There is a phase of change in every field, in every instrument of life, in every way of life. A kind of change is undergoing. A kind of change is undergoing. A kind of change is taking place. A kind of change is taking place. An academic interest from here. An academic interest or an attractive turns of scholars and thinkers towards Vedanta, Sankhya, Buddhism, admiration for the subtlety and largeness of Indian philosophic idealism, the stamp left by the Upanishads and the Gita on great intellects like Skofiner and Emerson, and on other few lesser thinkers. This was the first narrow inlet of the floods. Means the value of Indian culture, the value of Indian literature and philosophy was first admitted by the scholars like Skofiner and Emerson in their writing. They studied the Indian literature, they studied the Indian philosophy, they studied the Indian Vedas, and attached some significant value to the Indian knowledge. On the one hand, as a first consequence of the seeking for larger thought and vision of the universe, Indian monism has taken a subtle but powerful hold on many minds, though often in strange disguises. On the other hand, new philosophies have been born not indeed directly spiritual, visualistic rather than and pragmatic, but yet by their greater subjectivity already nearer to Indian ways of thinking. Means with the effect of the Indian Vedas and Indian philosophy on the world on the writers around the world, a new kind of culture has emerged that is not solely an Indian type of culture, but that has something sparked from the Indian culture, but that has a kind of spark of Indian culture with it. The Indian culture was opposed, has been opposed for such a long time now, opposed for a long time with obloquy and ridicule. It has done much to spread the belief in karma. Means Indian culture and has done and has done a job that is so invaluable that is so invaluable that it has done much to spread the belief in karma, in the belief in reincarnation and other planes of existence, the evolution of of the embodied soul through intellect and psyche to spirit. Ideas which once accepted must change the whole attitude towards life. Means Indian culture, Indian philosophy, or Indian religion, Indian Vedas have done much to spread belief in these elements, in the karma, the practice of reincarnation and other planes of existence, that they have made invaluable contribution to these fields. Even science itself is constantly arriving at conclusion which only repeat upon the physical plane in its language truths which ancient India had already affirmed from the standpoint of spiritual knowledge and the tongue of Veda and Vedanta. Means what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that the science, the present day science, the conclusions of the present day science are most of the times founded upon the spiritual knowledge of the Indian Vedas. The things that were proved spiritually by the Vedas way back, way back in the centuries, way some 10 or 15 or 20 centuries back, the science or the present day science is trying to prove those things which had already been proved spiritually by the Indian Vedas, cultures, and religions. So, in some directions, the change of attitude has remarkably far and seems to be constantly increasing. A Christian missionary quoted by Sir John Woodruff. So, what are the implications of Indian culture around the world? So, what are the effects, and where are the major areas where the scholars around the world have witnessed the effects of Indian culture, witnessed the effects of Indian culture, religion, philosophy, and literature around the world? The first way is, uh, you can note down these 5 or 6 points that I will tell you in a minute or two. So the first thing where we can find the influence of Indian culture on foreign cultures and foreign literatures. The first thing is the a scholar was amazed to find the extent to which Hindu pantheism has begun to penetrate the religious conceptions of Germany, of America, and even of England. The first influence is in the field of religion. The religious pantheism. Pantheism means the belief in multiple gods, the belief in the gods in natural entities, means the belief that a spirit lies in a tree. There is a spirit in the tree, means it is pantheism. The practice of witnessing gods in the natural objects. The first thing is the effect of Hindu pantheism on the religious conceptions of Germany, America, and England. And the second thing, the all the highest philosophical thought of Europe to the previous thinking of Brahmins, and affirm even that all modern solutions of intellectual problems will be found anticipated in the past. The first influence was on the religious pantheism of Germany, America, and England. The second influence could be witnessed on the thinking of Brahmins and the modern solutions of intellectual problems. the reflection of ancient Indian knowledge in the modern solutions of the problems. That is the second influence, the reflection of the ancient Indian knowledge in the modern solutions of the modern intellectual solutions of the problems. The third thing, India had already laid down all the large lines and main truths, the broad schema of a genuine psychology, and all that Europe can do now is to fill them in with exact details and scientific verification. So, the third influence could be witnessed in the field of psychology, and all that is nowadays verified by scientific verifications in the field of psychology could be witnessed. It could be found in the Indian literature, in the field of literature, in the field of Indian culture for way back, way thousands of years ago. The fourth field that we can witness the influence of Indian culture and Indian way of things, Indian way of life on modern life is the field of art. In the field of art, European art has moved in certain directions. Means European art has moved in certain directions, and in the fourth field is the field of art. European art has nowadays has started to attach some significant value to the Indian knowledge of architecture. They are attaching some value to the in the they are trying to attach some value to the Indian ways of thinking, Indian ways of art. The fifth, the fifth field where we could witness the effect of Indian way of life is the poetry. The and we can give the example of Tagore, the worldwide fame of Rabindranath Tagore, and the Indian Buddhistic and Sufi poems. The world has come to attach some significant value. They bear some significant value in the face of this modern materialistic world. The poems of Rabindranath Tagore, Sufi poems, Indian Buddhistic poems. So they have some value in the face of modernism. And the sixth field is more and more the seekers of new truth are finding their spiritual home in India. Means if somebody is trying to find any spiritual form, their last refuge is India. Their last refuge is India. If this turn continues to accentuate its drive and there is little chance of reversion, the spiritual and intellectual gulf between East and West is not filled up, will at least be bridged, and defense of Indian culture and ideals will stand in a stronger position. So, what is the outcome of these things? What is the outcome of a significant value that is being attached to Indian culture in the face of European materialism? What is the value? इसका यूज क्या है? अगर इंडियन कल्चर को वैल्यू दी जा रही है तो इसका आउटकम क्या है और इसका यूज क्या है? The outcome is that there was a breach, there was a cultural breach between the Eastern world and the Western world, between the Oriental world and the Occidental world. So there was a kind of breach, and that breach is trying to be bridged, and a defense of Indian culture and trial will stand in a stronger position. That breach, there is a kind of bridge that is being formed between the Eastern and the Western culture, between the spiritualism of India and the materialism of Europe. A kind of bridge is trying to be made. A kind of bridge is trying to be made. So, if a kind of bridge is trying to be made, what is the use of defending Indian culture aggressively? What is the use of the defense? Why do we need to defend the Indian way of life? So, I would not like to stretch this lecture for too long. I would just come to the conclusion. So, what is the use of defending Indian culture? So, the first thing is that a kind of blended culture will spark up if Indian cultures continue to exert their influence around the world. अगर इंडिया के कल्चर्स अराउंड द वर्ल्ड अपना इन्फ्लुएंस जो है एग्जर्ट करना कंटिन्यू रखते हैं तो अ काइंड ऑफ ब्लेंडेड कल्चरल सिविलाइजेशन विल स्पार्क अप, एक तरह की ब्लेंडेड सिविलाइजेशन, ब्लेंडेड कल्चर, एक हाइब्रिड कल्चर जो है वो स्पार्क अप होगा. Then what is the use of defending Indian way of thinking? The only use of defending Indian way of thinking is that there are hardly 1 or 2% of the population outside India that is trying to attach some significant value to the Indian way of thinking. So once people start following it, there would be no one people start following it around the world and in majority, not in the minority. If majority of people around the world start attaching significant value to the Indian culture, significant value to the Indian culture, then then only the then only there will be no need to defend the Indian culture. So I will come to the conclusion. सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी चीज़ क्या है? मैं आपको सिंपल शब्दों में बताता हूँ कि डिफेंड करने की ज़रूरत क्या है. Why is there any need of defending Indian culture? अगर डिफेंड नहीं करेंगे तो इंडियन कल्चर खत्म हो जाएगा इन द फेस ऑफ यूरोपियन मटेरियलिज्म, बिकॉज टू मच इंपॉर्टेंस इज बीइंग अटैच्ड टू द मटेरियल मटेरियल वैल्यू ऑफ द थिंग्स. मटेरियल वैल्यू जो है चीज़ों की, उनको ज़्यादा वैल्यू दी जा रही है. और अगर मटेरियल वैल्यू जो है वो ज़्यादा दी जाएगी चीज़ों को, तो जो स्पिरिचुअल वे ऑफ लाइफ है वो धीरे धीरे विल कम टू इट्स एंड, इट विल come towards its doom. So the only distinctive feature of India is spiritualism. और अगर spiritualism को ही defend नहीं करेंगे, and if that comes to decadence, we would be left with nothing to defend. हमारे पास defend करने के लिए कुछ बचेगा ही नहीं. लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है that we indulge ourselves in cultural chauvinism. कल्चरल शॉविनिज्म में हमें अपने आप को अटैच नहीं करना है. वी हैव टू डिफेंड अग्रेसिवली, बट वी वी डोंट हैव टू इंडल्ज आवरसेल्फ इन कल्चरल शॉविनिज्म. कल्चरल शॉविनिज्म में हमें अपने आप को इंडल्ज नहीं करना है. और इससे एक आगे वाली चीज जो है, दैट इज ऑल्सो ऑफ इम्पोर्टेंस, that is also important. What is that thing? That is the adaptation of the traits of foreign culture if they have any value in the face of Indian culture. अगर इंडियन कल्चर में उनकी कोई भी वैल्यू है तो हम उनकी उनकी उनके लिए हम एक उनको हम जो है वो अपने इंडियन कल्चर में अडॉप्ट करें. अगर वर्ल्ड की किसी कल्चर में कोई ऐसा ट्रेट है that could be prove of that could prove of some importance, that could prove its importance in the face of Indian way of life. अगर इंडियन वे ऑफ लाइफ में इसकी कोई इम्पोर्टेंस है तो वो हमें अडॉप्ट करना है, क्योंकि अगर हम डिफेंड नहीं करेंगे तो कल्चर खत्म हो जाएगा. एग्रेसिवली डिफेंड करने का मतलब अग्रेसिवली डिफेंड करना है, लेकिन इट शुड नॉट बिकम दी कल्चरल शॉविनिज्म. कल्चरल शॉविनिज्म का वे नहीं होना चाहिए. एंड थर्ड चीज ये है कि हम आइसोलेशन में नहीं रह सकते. देयर इज नो सर्वाइवल एंड प्रोग्रेस इन आइसोलेशन. ना ही तो सर्वाइवल है और ना ही प्रोग्रेस है आइसोलेशन में. वी have to adopt the traits of foreign cultures which have some significant value. अगर किसी भी फॉरेन कल्चर के ट्रेड, कोई भी फॉरेन कल्चर की कोई कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है और उसकी कोई सिग्निफिकेंट वैल्यू है, तो वी शुड कीप अवर हार्ट्स ओपन टू अडॉप्ट दोज फॉरेन ट्रेड्स ऑफ द कल्चर. हमें जो है वो फॉरेन ट्रेड्स कल्चर के जो है वो अडॉप्ट करने हैं. तो ये था आपका कंप्लीट. ऐसे एक बार मैं आपको जनरल ओवरव्यू इसका दे देता हूँ. सबसे पहली चीज़ तो इसमें बताई गई कि इंडियन कल्चर क्या है. इंडियन कल्चर जो है वो स्पिरिचुअलिज्म में बिलीव करता है, और ये एक हार्मनी के ऊपर जो है वो इसका स्ट्रेस होता है. किस चीज़ के हार्मनी? किस चीज़ की? माइंड, बॉडी और सोल की. यूरोपियन कल्चर क्या है? यूरोपियन कल्चर जो है वो इट इज़ टू मच गिवन टू दी मटेरियल फोर्सेस, मटेरियलिस्टिक कल्चर है। इंडियन कल्चर जो है वो स्पिरिचुअलिज्म में बिलीव करता है, और यूरोपियन कल्चर जो है वो मटेरियलिज्म में बिलीव करता है। और कल्चरल जो है वो कल्चर्स जो है वो हमेशा एक दूसरे से इंटरेक्ट करते रहते हैं, एंड देयर इज ऑलवेज अ चेंज दैट इज दैट इज अंडर वे। हमेशा एक चेंज जो है वो चलता रहता है, एक चेंज हमेशा जो है वो होता रहता है कल्चर्स में। उसके बाद जो है वो आती है डिफेंड करने की बात। तो कल्चर्स को, कल्चर के सर्वाइवल के लिए जो हो वो इसका डिफेंस ज़रूरी है। अगर डिफेंस नहीं करेंगे तो कल्चर ख़त्म हो जाएगा। लेकिन डिफेंड करने का मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम कल्चरल शोविनिज़्म में इंडल्ज हो जाएं। कल्चरल शोविनिज़्म हमें नहीं दिखाना है। हमें जो है वो इंडियन कल्चर को प्रोटेक्ट करना है एग्रेसिवली, लेकिन नॉट वी डोंट हैव टू इंडल्ज इन कल्चरल शोविनिज़्म। कल्चरल शोविनिज्म में इंडल्ज नहीं होना है। और लास्ट चीज, अगर किसी भी फॉरेन कल्चर में इफ देयर इज समथिंग दैट इज वैल्यूएबल वी कैन अडॉप्ट इट। हमें जो है वो इसे अडॉप्ट करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि हम आइसोलेशन में नहीं रह सकते। आइसोलेशन में ना ही तो सर्वाइवल है, ना ही प्रोग्रेस है। कोई भी फॉरेन कल्चर में अगर कुछ भी वैल्यूएबल थिंग है तो उसको हम अडॉप्ट करेंगे। सो दिस वाज all in the essay. In the two parts of the essay, is India civilized?